Hi, I'm Shelley, owner of Premier Rapport.
I'm Elizabeth Veliz, HR and business professional.
So we're coming to you today for our very first of many live conversations around every topic known to man in business. And Culture Matters Hour by Elizabeth and Shelley. So welcome aboard, and in the future, look for the announcements about our hot topics of the day. So Elizabeth and I were just in a conversation about this last week, and we were talking about this and that, and she's like, you know what? The problem with all this harassment is, why isn't anybody saying where was HR? So, of course, we got into this whole conversation. It's like, oh my gosh, we need to write a blog about it, blah, blah. Well, then, yesterday, we get our copies of our HR magazines, and the new CEO writes his opening introduction of the Me Too, where was HR? So I immediately took a picture and texted to her and said, we got to talk about this. So here we are. So Elizabeth, you deal with this every single day. What first of all, why did you bring this up last week? And then after reading an article, what are your thoughts?
Well, I brought it up last week during a conversation that we were having because I really started to think to myself, with this entire Me Too movement, obviously the celebrities, the rock stars, the actors and actresses, I get that. But that's not the only place that this happens. And I myself have been a victim of very inappropriate behaviors, very inappropriate discussions, et cetera, et cetera. And the question to me was, why is nobody asking where was HR throughout all of this? Because as you know, as all of you know, part of HR's responsibility is, as Johnny Taylor very eloquently states in the article, is to drive that safe environment for people to work in, free of harassment, free of discrimination, and free of inappropriate behaviors. And I just kept asking, where was HR? Where was HR?
You and I have talked about the need for courage, and again, he brings this up as well. And it's a need for courage. The conversation has been a need for courage for the victims coming forth. But the reality is, so many HR professionals, and correct me if I'm wrong, you dance this role of pro-employee, pro-employer, when the reality is you're supposed to be the entire embodiment. And so it takes courage to be able to stand up as an executive in a firm, especially when it's your boss or the boss's boss who might be acting inappropriately. But the bottom line is, we were talking about what's in the handbook, what type of training is being done, but it all comes down to one thing: the company culture. Yes. And predicating the boundaries of what is appropriate and what is not, and not turning it into a discussion now. I know I've gotten a lot of phone calls to deliver these training pieces as a fix, but what are you doing to curate it and make it a norm of what's acceptable and what's not?
And it's so interesting because you say people are calling you to do this training as a fix. Let me be clear. Training is not the problem. Training does not fix sexual harassment or discrimination in the workplace. Accountability does.
Yes.
Accountability, your culture, and I'm just going to say what I've been saying for years and years. HR professionals have got to have the courage to stand up for what is right. Not just doing things right, but doing the right thing. And 10, 12 years ago, when I was first exposed to Johnny Taylor at the Garden State Council's SHRM State Conference, he was one of the keynote speakers.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, it was amazing. He changed my life. He doesn't know this. He doesn't know who I am.
Johnny, if you're watching, now you know.
You changed my life. And he got up on stage, Shelley, and he said, what is the number one characteristics that HR professionals have got to have in order to be successful? And people were throwing out all sorts of different competencies, and he was like, they're all good. They're all good. Courage. You have to have courage. And he was very clear and very transparent. That courage could potentially get you fired. It could. But here's the thing. Why are you in this job? Why have you chosen to be an HR professional? For the money? Let's call it what it is, people. We are not the most highly compensated employees in our organizations, okay? So obviously it's not the money. You want to make a difference. You want to impact the company culture. You want to drive the right behaviors, but without courage to stand up, without courage to lead, that initiative to lead that process,
Stuff like this happens.
stuff like this happens. And now
Yeah.
we've got the time is up. Well, guess what? Time should have been up
Right.
20, 30, 40 years ago.
We've gotten into what we call, norms, and we've got to get out of the norm piece, especially with all the automation coming.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be more important as we of our tasks getting automated that we're going to have more people time. So we better get our people stuff together. So we could go on about this.
Yes.
This is just a first preview. If you've got a question you would like to have us talk about, we're looking for hot topics and articles like these, what's going on in the workplace that we hear from our SHRM chapters, from things that we read in articles, HBR, really things that I'm dealing with my clients and I get phone calls on. So we're going to come to you more and more frequently to talk about the hot topic. And so today we just thought we would stir it up a little bit with the continued, in a positive way, the discussion around Me Too, the discussion around courage, and the discussion around accountability. And it's all predicated of your workplace environment, which is predicated by the people inside the environment. So until then, I'm Shelley.
I'm Elizabeth.
Culture Matters, and tune in again to the Culture Matters Hour. Peace out.